What's up guys, Noah from TemplateFC here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use our pattern generator. You can get this on our website, TemplateFC.com. It's only $5. It also is an option in our TemplateFC Studio Pack, which is a huge graphic design pack, designed mainly for apparel and kit and uniform designers, but can be used by any sort of designer that uses Photoshop and Illustrator, mainly Photoshop. But you can see we have our main studio pack with main assets and a couple add-ons that are just only $1, and then the pattern generator is $3 to add on because it's kind of sweet, or you can get it for $5 here. But there's a few things that we're going to be using from the studio pack with this that aren't necessary but just kind of help with the process. So let's just say you buy this one just by itself. You're going to get 2 items in your download. So you're going to get, first of all, the zip file, which you're going to just unzip and get this, an action and a PSD. So you want to install the action and only use this PSD while using the action. So let me show you how that works. Let's hop into Photoshop. The file's already open. There's a few things already in here that I'm going to tell you about. So we have examples, which you can just take a look at and use these patterns if you like. It's just a couple things that we created with this tool using some shapes, but you can also delete that and get rid of it. We have a layer here that's called Make Visible. This is something you always want to be visible, so the background's kind of not getting in the way of the pattern. So you have a solid base for your pattern, and you can change the color of this layer by double clicking, and you can make it whatever you want depending on what kind of object you add and what color your pattern will be. So in our case, we're using black shapes and black to create black patterns, so we want a white background so we can clearly see that. Then we have a group that's called Don't Touch, and that's used to create the pattern, so you don't want to mess with it. If you delete this or modify it, it might screw up the actions so you can't use them. So be sure not to touch it. Also, be sure to not mess around with this add object layer at all. All you want to do is make it visible when you want to create a pattern. And other than that, you don't really want to touch it. Obviously, you want to double click it to open the object. So it's a smart object, double click it to open it. This is where you add any object you want to create a pattern with. So there's that, but don't do anything else otherwise. Don't rename it, don't do anything. So that's out of the way. When you want to create a pattern, you want to install the actions. So you want to go to Window, Actions to bring up your Actions tab. And you want to go up here to this menu and click that. And you want to load actions. And all you're going to do is go to your downloads or wherever you saved the pattern generator. And you want to go to the .atn file, which is the action file. Select it and open it. And that will install it into your actions. You'll notice we have 5 different pattern styles that we get to choose from. So I'll be showing you all 5 of those and how to change how a pattern looks by adjusting the size or adding color. So let's go ahead to the smart object that I opened earlier, which has our shape. I'm going to delete the shape we have there already, and we're going to add our own. So you could add things like a club's badge, a team's logo, an animal related to the team, an object related to your client. Whatever you want, you can add anything to generate a pattern. You can even do pictures probably. I don't know if it would be the fastest loading time, but you can theoretically add whatever you want here. Now in our studio pack, we have gradient shapes. So these are just shapes with different gradient styles on them. And I'm gonna use one of these because it's nice and simple. And I like having a gradient that fades into transparency because then the pattern creates some cool depth that I really like. And then if we add a color to it, it looks even better. So I'll show you guys that. I'm going to come to 15. Let's do 15.3. I like that gradient. And I'm going to make this object a little bit bigger. And I'm going to show you how the size works with these. So let's rasterize this. And I'm calling this a bigger shape. It takes up most of the canvas size-wise. And then we'll do some smaller ones. So this is added, it's rasterized. Let's save it and come back to the pattern generator file. Select the add object layer and open up your actions. And then this is where you can run the actions. So let's start with pattern style 1 and click play. And that's all we have to do. And it will generate this pattern for us. And there we go. And you can see the gradient adds a nice depth of texture to this. This one really separates the parts nicely too, actually, with like the gradient and like the solid design, so that's interesting. But let me run through all 5 of these so you can kind of see the different styles you can get from one object. So this is style 2, that's a fun pattern. Style 3. Style 4. And then finally, style 5. And you're noticing I'm hiding the pattern and then making the object visible again for each one of these. Be sure to do that when you're creating your pattern. But that's one object, and you can see 5 completely different patterns generated from that object. And this is just an abstract object. It's a lot more fun if you use real objects too. Get a lot more interesting patterns that you can create that way. But this was a big shape, so let's try it with the smaller shape. So let's select this and make it a bit smaller. Now this is probably going to be a little smaller than what you would actually want to do, but I'm just going to be doing this to show you the difference. So let's do that and save it and come back. And this is pattern 1, so let's do pattern 1 again and compare. There we go. So there's that. You can see a lot more negative space now, and then compare it to this. You can see it's similar, but still a lot different. And I think that second one is even better. And we could probably find a different pattern to pair this with, or pair them together with this one being like a lower opacity. And you get something like that. So that's a fun thing you can do. Let's try one more of these, which one also looked pretty good. So, okay, 4 looked pretty good, but let's see what it looks like with the smaller variation. Okay, that's pretty simple. 4 and 5 are the more simple pattern layouts, by the way. So, like, those are like traditional ones. The first 3 are more like triangle based. So you get some more rotation and things like that. And there we go. So maybe a little too small for the pattern style 3, but I like how that looks with pattern style 1. Now let's go ahead and maybe switch up our object. I'm gonna go ahead and add a new one, and we're gonna add a color to it. So let's go ahead and find, well, this one's pretty cool. Shape 21, we'll do 3. Actually, let's make this a little bit bigger. I accidentally offset that, so I'm going to press Command A and align this middle, and rasterize. And then I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to go to gradient, and I have the TemplateFC gradients installed, which are from the Studio Pack. So you can do that. I have this, or that's not the gradient I had selected. Which one did I have selected? Maybe this one? This is a fun gradient right here. Let's do that. And this is kind of on an angle. Let's save it. Come back. Make our object visible. And let's see. We'll just start with pattern 3. That's cool. Maybe this object is actually a little too small still. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Save it. Come back. Let's try 3 again. That's much better. Let's try 1. Now that's cool. Maybe this one we can make a tiny bit smaller to get a little bit more negative space. And run that again. And that's still very similar, but still very cool. Could probably even go smaller on this. Let's try that. Nice. This is like a flower, it looks like. But easy, one click, and you can just keep generating these guys and create as many patterns as you want. Use them for whatever. Layer them like I mentioned before, and you can create a whole bunch of results doing this. Pretty easy to use. Again, just don't touch the don't touch folder, and be sure to drag the pattern to a new document whenever you want to use it. So if we want to say drag this to a mockup, you just want to select it, drag it, and drop it wherever you want. You'll also notice sometimes maybe it's not big enough for whatever you're doing. In most cases, you can just duplicate it with Command J and drag it over and try to align it correctly so it repeats correctly. So keep that in mind. They're not infinite patterns, but they should be big enough for most things. They're pretty huge usually. So yeah, hopefully you guys can use this. Be sure to check out the rest of TemplateFC's products on TemplateFC.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and we'll see you in the next one.